Hey guys, I'm going to do some examples from lesson 1-7, absolute value equations and inequalities. And I'm going to do one of the word problems too for those of you who give me that whole, why are we doing this? Maybe that'll help. Okay, so I picked some examples that are similar to the ones that you're doing today, but not the same ones. So for this absolute value of x minus 4 equals 9, since I have minus 4 on the outside of the brackets, I need to get rid of that first. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And that gives me the absolute value of x equals 13, because those will just cancel out. So that means x is 13 or negative 13. In this example, there's nothing outside of the brackets on this side. So you're going to create your two equations right in the first step. Negative 2x plus 8 equals 20, or negative 2x plus 8 equals negative 20. Now you need to solve these separately. So I can subtract 8 here. Negative 2x equals 12. So then we could divide by negative 2. And x is negative 6. On this side, when I subtract 8, I get negative 2x equals negative 28. I can divide that off by negative 2, and that gives me x equals 14. And like I was telling you guys in class, I know it's not easy to fit these in here, so if you circle your answers, it'll make it a lot easier for me. Or if you do your work on a separate piece of paper, just make sure you upload it. That way I can see where you're getting mixed up, and I can give you little tips on how to fix the mistakes. All right, the next one looks almost the same, but this has a 2 on the outside. It also doesn't have a negative sign. But since I've got something outside the brackets, I need to take care of that before I create the two equations. So I need to divide the 2 on both sides. Remember, on this side, it does just take the 2 off. Since all of this would have been multiplied by 2, then I divide it by 2, and it just cancels the multiplication. So 20 divided by 2 on this side gives me 10. That means that x plus 8 is 10, or x, here we go, x plus 8 equals negative 10. So then you can subtract 8 from both sides here, and you get x equals 2. If I subtract 8 on both sides here, I get x equals negative 18. I wish that they had made them both a positive 2 so that you could see how much different the equations were. If we need to do some other examples, maybe I'll do that. All right, I want to skip past a couple of those. I'm going to come back and do a word problem, but I want to do one of these tricky inequalities and also one of the graphs. Okay, so we've got a couple of different things here that need to be taken care of before we can create our two equations. So I'm going to start with the plus 10 because we're going backwards through PEMDAS. So I subtract 10 on both sides. Those cancel, and that gives me negative 16 here. Sorry, let me try and make this easier to see. Okay, so then you just bring the rest of the equation down. 2x plus 4 is greater than negative 16. Oh, this one's tricky. Right now I got to divide by a -2. That's going to flip this. But then I got to create my second equation and flip that again. All right. So when I divide by -2 in an inequality, I'm going to have to flip it. You know what? I'm just going to have to do this on a separate piece of paper. All right, let me rewrite this. 2x plus 4 plus 10 is greater than -6. All right. So we took 10 away. -2, 2x plus 4 is greater than -16. Now I need to divide by -2 on both sides. And see how both sides were negative? Now when I divide by that negative, it makes them positive. That's why you flip your sign. You're flipping these signs, so you flip this too. All right. So you get the absolute value of 2x plus 4 is less than 8. Now I need to create my two equations. 2x plus 4 is less than 8. 2x plus 4 is greater than -8. I changed the sign, so I flipped that back. So now we can solve this down to x. I'm going to subtract 4, and I get 2x is less than 4. Divide by 2, and I get x is less than 2. And then I have 2x plus 4 is greater than -8. Subtract 4 still. 2x is greater than -12. Divide by 2 again. X is greater than -6. This one was tricky, so I'm going to go ahead and take some numbers that would be true for both of these statements, plug them into my equation, and make sure that it actually works. So if x is a number less than 2, I could say x equals 1 would work. And x is a number greater than -6, could say x is -5 works. Okay, so I rewrote the whole equation from here, but where I had the x, I plugged in 1. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus 4 is 6. All right, -2 times 6 is -12. Plus 10 is -2, which is greater than -6. And then if we take the equation and plug in -5, we'll do -2, 2 times -5, plus 4, plus 10 is greater than -6. Again, I just rewrote this equation and I plugged in a value for x that is greater than -6. So -2, 2 times -5 plus 4. So I'm going to work my way out from here. Because now I'm solving equations, and when you solve equations, you work through the steps for PEMDAS. So -10 plus 4 is -6. But it's the absolute value of that. And you can see I'm rewriting the whole thing each time. So all I've done is work inside of the brackets. So the absolute value of -6 is going to give me 6. And 6 times -2 is -12. So again, negative 12 plus 2 is negative 2, which is greater than negative 6. Think about it this way. If you only owed $2, you owe less money than if you owed $6. That's closer to 0, so the number is greater. Okay, so both of those answers work. If you were to graph this, this looks like an and statement. X is less than 2 and X is greater than negative 6. Remember those look like? Here's negative 6, here's 0, here's 2, and X is some value in between those numbers. All right? We're going to do something similar here. We're going to solve the equation for X and then pick the equation that it matches. So 3 times the absolute value of X minus 2 is less than or equal to 10. We're going to add 2 to both sides. 3 absolute values of X is less than or equal to 12. So X, now if I divide by the 3, X is less than or equal to 4, or X is greater than or equal to negative 4. So less than or equal to 4, greater than or equal to negative 4. So they're closed circles because they both have the equal to, so it has to be this one or this one. Less than or equal to 4 means at 4 it's going less than, greater than or equal to negative 4, it's going that way. So this is an and statement, it's here. This matches B. The last one I wanted to do, and I had to really work through this one myself, we're going to write and solve an absolute value equation for the minimum and maximum times for an object moving at the given speed to travel the given distance. You guys know this is the speed, here's the miles. So if you divide the miles by the miles per hour, that gives it the hours it takes. Okay? This actually helps you with solving those variables. Look, when you divide miles by miles per hour, miles and miles cancel, and that gives you how many hours. So let's just think through this. We know that we're going to take whatever the distance is and divide it by 5 to find out what the time is. And the distance is close to 10 miles. It's somewhere between negative 2.5 and 2.5 miles more than, it's either 2.5 miles less or 2.5 miles more than 10 miles. And then we are going 5 miles an hour, so whatever that distance is, I would divide it by the 5 miles per hour to find how many hours. Okay. So if it was 2.5 miles less than 10, that value right here would be 7.5 miles, right? Because I just take 10, subtract the 2.5, and I get 7.5. 2.5 more than 10, this number here, we're going to add 2.5, that's 12.5 miles. Okay, I wish I had room to fit it here, but I think I got to do it on this other paper. So we're going 5 miles per hour. And it's either 7.5 miles or 12.5 miles. Because we're doing 10 plus or minus 2.5. And then whatever that number is, we're going to divide it by 5. Oh, you got to be kidding me. So as tempting as it is to try to plug this in, this is the part that goes into the inequality, or the absolute value. Remember, the plus or minus is when you break your two absolute value equations apart. And then after that, you would take the whole thing and divide it by 5. So we don't know which one it is. We're going to work our way backwards. This is what we want. We want to take 7.5 or 12.5 and divide it by 5 to figure out how long it took them. So if we work our way backwards, we can create the equation. So to undo this and make this into an inequality, the first thing I need to do is get rid of this dividing by 5. And to do that, I multiply by 5. (5x) equals 10 plus or minus 2.5. Now I'm going to subtract the 10 from both sides to move it over here. 5x minus 10. And here's where that plus or minus comes in. The absolute value of 5x minus 10 equals 2.5. See, because now if I go to solve this, I'm going to have to create two equations where one is plus and one is minus 2.5. I don't know if there's some like other way to set this up that makes sense. I couldn't find a good example that explains how to come up with this equation. So what I did is, like I said, I took how I know to solve for the time. I know I need to take my distance and divide it by my my rate of speed, and that'll give me my time. And then I worked backwards to create the equation. Now, if I went to solve this, watch how you would end up solving this. So the absolute value, I would create 5x minus 10 equals 2.5, or 5x minus 10 equals negative 2.5. I'm going to circle this. This is the answer. I just want to show you that it does work. Now I'm adding 10, and I get 5x equals 12.5. And then divide by 5. See, this is what I wanted. I knew it was either 7.5 miles or 12.5 miles. And then I need to divide by the 5 miles per hour to see how fast it went. So x equals 12.5 divided by 5, which is, what is that? 2.5 hours. On this side, if you did the same thing, when you add 10, you get 5x equals 7.5. Divide by the 5, and you get x equals 1.5 hours. And now let's look at the other equation, the original. Like, think about it. If you went 10 miles at 5 miles per hour, it would take you 2 hours to get there. So if you got rid of 2.5 miles, that'll get rid of half an hour of travel. If you got added 2.5 miles, it's going to add a half hour of travel. So this makes perfect sense. All right. If you guys have any questions, you know you can always message me. Have a good one.